Hemsley Winfield and Lenore Cox by Dr. Nelson Neal. 2 years after Hemsley Winfield died of pneumonia at the age of 26, Lenore Cox gave a presentation at the First National Dance Congress and Festival in New York City, where she referred to him as outstanding. She noted that, at the time, the Harlem club owners were introducing entertainment that for the Negro was only synthetic primitive and tap. She went on to state,
Meanwhile, groups of Negro dancers and students who had been watching the progress made by other groups in the dance saw possibilities of doing creative work in the dance and decided to attempt to do something other than jazz dancing. Some, no doubt, turned in this direction because they thought it the smart thing to do, or because being a classical dancer would set them apart from the hoi polloi others, because they felt the need for an outlet that could not be supplied by the popular conception of dancing. Outstanding among these was the group headed by the late Hemsley Winfield. To my mind, Winfield deserves a great deal of credit for his ability to organize and hold a group together, his leadership, his imagination, and his personality. As a dancer, and I say it as one who admired him and sympathized with what he was trying to do, his technique was not all that it might have been, but he was evidently working constantly to correct that. His group, while attempting interesting themes significant to the problems of the Negro, was handicapped by the lack of training and practice. This was due, I'm sure, to no habit of theirs, but because their regular jobs made it impossible for them to spend the amount of time necessary for what they were attempting in the dance. Probably the most important thing done by this group was the dancing in Emperor Jones, the operatic version starring Lawrence Tibbett.
Winfield understood that his dancers needed further training. They had only been training for less than a year. After their first concert, March 6, 1931, they had a repeat performance scheduled for April at the Mansfield Theater. This concert was canceled, so he, and I quote, will subject the group to a course of intensive training during the summer and will endeavor at the time of the next recital, early fall, to offer a performance of indisputable perfection. After the first concert, critic John Martin wrote, "The concert dance is apparently the only branch of the theatrical arts which has not heretofore been successfully approached by the Negro artist, though it is obviously one for which he is admirably fitted." He also wrote that the sold-out concert proved there was a lively interest in it, and despite dancing on a small stage space, the dancers maintained an imperturbable poise and adapted themselves to the conditions as they found them. Just over 2.5 years after John Martin saw Winfield's dance group perform for the first time, Hemsley Winfield died at the age of 26 on January 15, 1934. His company changed its name to the Modern Negro Dance Group, which lasted for less than a year without his leadership. Since I was inspired by Ms. Cox's article to share her thoughts about Winfield, I found information about Lenore Cox. She was a member of the Negro unit of Ballet Theater, 1940-1941, and a dancer in Flying Colors, September of 1932. She was born in 1905, grew up in Richmond, Virginia, and was also known as Aislinn Cox. She trained at the School of Modern Dancing under Doris Humphrey and was a student at New York's City College. As a member of the Negro unit of Ballet Theater, Cox was in the original 1940 cast of Agnes DeMille's Black Ritual. She was considered a dance critic and writer and gave an additional presentation at the Second National Dance Congress in 1939. Lenore Cox passed away in 1981. African American successes of Winfield, Guy, Dunham, and DeFora brought attention to black dancers. The National Dance Congress in New York City 1936 passed the resolution, "Whereas the Negro people in America have been subject to segregation and suppression which has limited their development in the field of creative dance. Be it resolved that the Dance Congress encourage and sponsor the work of the Negro people in the creative fields. Edna Guy and Lenore Cox organized Negro Dance Evening, March 7, 1937, concert, a call to independence, to make immediately apparent to the audience the roots of the dancing in the Americas today.